Okay, so here we are. What a wonderful day it is, right? Troy, how are you, sir?
I have been better, but this is like cathartic for me to come on here and talk about it. So I'm really stoked to be here
Yes.
and get some stuff off the chest, clear the air, as it were.
Yes, it is. It is our sort of our group therapy session, right? TCR
Absolutely.
lifestyle, right? So, yeah, so in case you've been, I don't know, living under a rock or didn't chose not to watch the game or follow any Cardinal social media, which actually might be a pretty solid strategy, life strategy for right now, is just to kind of go away from all that, do the monk thing. But in case you didn't know, Kyler Murray is gone, down for the season with an ACL tear, and is likely to miss part of next season. We'll talk about that a little bit. The how much he's going to miss is to be determined. So really, what we're going to talk about today is, the uh, what how we felt about that, the implications of that, both for this season and for next season. And we'll get into what folks in the chat have to say about it. So why don't we get it started? Troy, why don't you talk about kind of how what your reaction was to the injury, kind of how you felt about that when it happened.
So I missed kind of the first half of the game yesterday because I was flying in from Seattle for like a family kind of vacation stuff. And so so right when I touch down, I land, it's like 6:30, and naturally, right as I turn my phone on, I am bombarded by the news that he is down and non-contact injury, and my heart just like sank. I was like, you got to be kidding me, because it's like not only is like this injury bad, it's just like the timing of it is like the worst possible timing ever, really. And then I go on Twitter and like I see all the photos of him and he just looks like a mess, and that it was brutal. And really it's just like, for how much crap he went through this year, how much crap the whole team went through this year, it's just like a real kick in the crotch, you know what I mean? Like, it really just, because like we hear all this stuff about Kyler, but like, man, seeing he's always been pretty like non-emotive, but seeing him, it's like almost like watching your dad cry or something like that, you're just like,
Yeah.
oh no. So it sucks. And I was also going against the worst thing too. I was going against him in fantasy, and like if I
Okay.
won, I was like going to get in the playoffs. So I was like, or like, basically I won, but I still didn't get in the playoffs, and
Okay.
like Kyler's gone, and so I'm like, wow, this is really just the worst case scenario. So it sucks. And then the
Yeah.
team went on to play terribly. So it's like, okay, here we go.
Man, yeah, and you mentioned how sad, and I included this picture, and for anyone who missed it, I did a video, it went live maybe 30 minutes before we just did, of how covering like how I think the Cardinals should approach the Kyler injury, and I this picture, for all the hate that Kyler's gotten, and I get that there's some people who aren't believers in him. I've been a believer in him. I know he's having a down year. There's a lot of reasons for that. Um, but man, you feel for him. Like you see just how devastated he is, and anyone who thinks he doesn't care about playing or winning, that's just baloney narratives. But it was really sad, right? You feel for the kid, and like, and the timeline on that, right? And I also included this tweet in my video. This was a tweet that I thought did a nice, concise job of explaining the timeline on the injuries, right? I've heard, people talk about the recovery, usually 8 to 9 months. Here says this person says the average is 10 months. Some people say less than that. A player can recover. A lot of people have cited Joe Burrow's, recovery and being able to play week one, but Burrow is more of a pocket quarterback. And as this tweet says, week one is realistic, but more commonly he'd miss up to 1 month. But pocket quarterbacks don't see stats dipped upon return. But the data suggests that running effectiveness will take about 12 months to get 90% of pre-injury form. So really what you're looking at with Kyler is, okay, maybe he can play early in the season if he's going to play much more of an in the pocket style. But you saw how conservative they were with his hamstring injury, and how, Cliff said, we don't want him back till he can be 100%. Do they take that approach next year? Maybe not. They might bring him back at 90% just to have him back. But I think with how much that running is part of what he does, I think it's going to be longer than that. So we're talking about next season. So we're going to talk about tonight, how the implications for that. Real quick, though, want to say hey to all the folks in the chat who are here. We've got KR Gordon 08. So what do we do with the top 5 pick, right? Well, we'll talk about this more. We don't take a quarterback, as much as some people might say that. But we, and maybe we can talk a little bit about that too. We've got Johnny Griff. Thank you for being here. The only prescription now is a complete culture change. I mean, people have been talking about that, right? In terms of especially the front office. Real quick, I want to say thank you and hey to Grandizer, who's always doing such a great job holding down the chat, putting all the links in there. Appreciate Grandizer. Great person, just does a lot of service for people in the community. So thank you so much. We got Tony Height. I think after the Kaiju, we can start calling these rehab sessions, right? Yeah, I know. We've got Ian Keller, depression mode. I feel that. We got Alcard, right? Like also, like Suns are starting to fall apart too, right? Like we needed the Suns to kind of be our boost, but no, they're losing to Houston right now, aren't they? I think they're playing right now.
Yeah, and I think like DA is like injured his ankle too, so
yeah,
Valley Sports curse is really hitting us hard.
Right. We got Agent 47. I never want Hard Knocks there, so the curse was really powerful here. Like, I mean, people talk about the Hard Knocks curse, and me being kind of like this, empirically minded, sociologist. I'm like, listen, that's not a real thing. Hard Knocks, usually you have to have you can't have made the playoffs for the last couple of years to be in Hard Knocks. So there's kind of this, the reason the teams have bad seasons when they're Hard Knocks is because usually they were already bad teams. And then I mean, I think the universe said F you and your rational theory. Let's just give you a ACL to your quarterback, a complete regression of the team, falling apart. Let's put everyone on your offensive line except for the oldest one on IR. Take that, right? So
it's like, it's been just brutal. Like when you really think about like the season this year, it's just been like one. I also the naive thought like during the off season when everything was kind of hitting the fan, I was like, oh, we're just getting all the bad stuff out of the way early. Like we'll hit our goods,
right.
We're paying our debts early, and then no, it's just continuing, just getting punched in the face.
That's exactly. I mean, it's like getting kicked somewhere. It really is.
Yeah.
You ever seen that video of like the monks just
exactly? Yeah.
Each other?
It's that.
Like that.
Except add 2 of them onto it,
Right. We got Moore's Legacy. Trayvon Mullen got cut today. I saw that. So what that means at this point is that
we'll talk about this more later, but really like Keim. Now it's like Keim's turn to get dragged through the mud because he's also been having a rough week.
Yeah, for sure. The straight up implications of this is it was a conditional pick in the trade. Now it is going to be a 7th round pick. It could have been a 6th round pick if he played more. So, but it's going to be a 7th round pick. So we got that. Let's see. We got Steezy. Or Steezy. LOL. Actually, he had a comment earlier. Kyler's going to hit max prestige and Call of Duty. Yeah. The Call of Duty jokes are just. Sorry, Steezy. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but like.
No. He's picking the low hanging fruit. So
I know,
he has to get called out. I'm sorry.
But okay. I mean, he's got some time, but in all seriousness, I mean, I do hope that though this time is used, with his nose in that playbook. And I'm not trying to say pile onto he didn't do it enough before, but it's like someone sitting as a backup, a rookie sitting as a backup, looking at the clipboard, that those mental reps and watching from a different perspective can be helpful. So hopefully, there can be some things like that come out of this. We've got Illadre. Thank you for saying yes. Hit the like button. Really appreciate that. And for the super chat, thank you so much. I would play Tracy McSorley to see what we have. I mean, listen, for the rest of the season, sure. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I mean, we'll go into your picks for people that didn't watch the video for next season, but like, I don't know. We kind of saw Trace in preseason and he really struggled in one game. And I think if you're really struggling in a preseason game, you're probably not fit for multiple live NFL games. So
Yeah.
I
I think
prefer
sorry.
some of your choices in your video you listed over Trace McSorley.
Yeah, for sure. And I think what we have in Trace McSorley is a backup who might once, a third stringer who might develop into a backup. But I don't hate playing. Listen, at this point in the season, let's play everyone we want to audition for, next year, right? See if they're going to be back. So sure, play them. See what we have. See if we have a guy who can be a legit number 2 quarterback, or if we have a guy who we should move on from. So yeah, I would generally agree. So yeah, thank you so much, Ildre. I appreciate the super chat so much. We got GW Wild. Hey, thanks for being here, channel member, great supporter, and someone who always has very interesting comments. So thank you for that. And we've got Erica. Thank you for being here. Even Big Red got injured. Oh, the mask. I didn't see that or hear that, but okay.
I think I actually know that guy, so I feel bad now.
Oh, no.
I think he's also the Diamondbacks Bobcat too. I'm pretty sure. The guy is also a Renaissance man. He has many talents.
Oh, nice. Good to know. Okay, yeah. So I hope he's okay. That's unfortunate. Keith Davis, thanks for being here. We're the third oldest team and second most penalized. Now losing Kyler, we should really expose Keim and Cliff as terrible. In fact, you mentioned this earlier. Why don't we use this as a jumping off point to talk about Keim? You mentioned this kind of a moment ago. In terms of him kind of having, fans have been criticizing him for a while, but I think it's becoming even more resonant. And so what do you think this and anything else from the season? What does it mean in terms of for Keim, or anything you want to say about Keim right now, Troy?
I mean, I think so. Sorry, I'm just kind of getting over the flu here.
Yeah.
So this is all kind of coming to head. Starting with the Tennessee Titans GM getting axed after he was also extended this past offseason, ironically, right around the same time Keim was. And Tennessee's been much more successful I would say mostly much more successful than the Cardinals have. And even he got the axe. Some believe it might have been not performance-based issues, but the official reason that it has to be the team doesn't like where the roster's going. And if you do watch the Titans, I mean, really their whole team is they're not defensively strong, and it's just Derrick Henry and running downhill. They missed a lot of first round picks. They haven't really had a lot of success in the draft as well, or trade. So he got the axe, and so everyone's now looking at like, oh, well, if he can get fired, Keim can definitely get fired. So it's the same situation. Then after that, you had the Jordan Schultz, I believe, that article hit.
Yep.
Which had a long time, I believe, Cardinals staffer pretty much calling out Keim for everything that we've always said, and like the local community and the local fandom is now like hitting national news. Now we have national people kind of saying he's just a fan. He's not, and this is quoting the article, he's just a fan. He's not a football savant or anything. And he, quote, this is the hilarious part, not a good leader, which is hilarious that, because where do you want you to believe? Whenever Ian Rappaport, any of those Kyler's not a good leader comments come from, I can tell you where those comments are coming from, and it is probably Mr. Steve Keim. I mean, if you put two and two together, or Bidwell, it's front office are leaking these comments. So that's hilarious that he's called not a good leader, and for him blaming his own quarterback. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, and so just to clarify, we don't know it was a Cardinal staffer, right? I think it was described as a personnel.
Maybe as a person. I took it as Cardinal staffer, but I mean, I would assume, because
I've read the article, and the way it's worded, I think it was described as someone with a long time working in personnel.
Okay, yeah.
So, excuse me. So unless there's something that that I don't know, or
no, I mean, I don't. Maybe I've misread it, but okay. So,
but
NFL,
yes,
staff from the outside.
Someone who interacts with Keim,
exactly.
Regularly.
And I was listening to, it was one of the national kind of more sports media, and I remember hearing this, and this person, again, they're not probably intimately familiar with the Cardinals, but he says the Cardinals seem to be bad. They overvalue their own talent and stuff. Like they're bad at self-scouting. Like, they overvalue their own players. And so that, I think that's always been a nation, or not nation, but like a NFL wide opinion of the team. And if you kind of look historically, we've always hired in-house and stuff like that, then it's kind of makes sense. But yeah, so now Keim's kind of getting dragged publicly or on the national media wise, which I guess funny. The article says it's not Cliff's fault, but I kind of be like, well, I mean, Keim's not making some of these play calls, buddy. So
Yeah.
part of it is Cliff's fault, but we'll keep going.
Yeah,
then,
there was. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say there was. I don't want to misattribute this, but I think it was Warren Sharp who does, Sharp Football, who does a lot of stuff. If I'm wrong about that, don't hold it against me. But someone tweeted about Keim. This was back when I think before the season started, when some of the other stuff about like when Peterson, I think maybe it was last season, even when Peterson was chirping then. And anyway, what the tweet said was basically that Keim is known in league circles to be someone who leaks stuff to the media for his own, what he wants out. Yeah. Kind of to the point you made. And when it comes to when it comes to like the Cardinals, I really try to take a lot of time to think about my positions on players, coaches, GM. I was very slow to come around to the idea that we needed to move on from the GM or the coach. There's some people who still support them, and I respect that. But early on, when everyone was like, fire Cliff, fire Keim, I was like, a slow your roll. Let's, kind of preach patience. But I do look at everything and I listen to ideas and information. And then I try to come to my own conclusions on my timeline, don't ever try to convince me of things, but share the information with me and I will take it into account. Right. And I process it all. And the place I've come to right now at this moment is that Keim is the biggest problem. There is a problem of professionalism, I think, in my opinion, from what I'm hearing and seeing, that there's a problem in terms of how he runs things, problems of how he treats people, a little bit of weaselly stuff behind the scenes. With Cliff, I actually think Cliff is a good leader. I know some people don't agree with that. I think Cliff is smart. I think he's good at coaching his system overall, especially the design side. But I have two concerns with Cliff, and they are that his offense, I think, just isn't sustainable in the NFL because of certain things about how the receivers and playmakers are used, not creative enough, and that sometimes he just gets a little too cute with the plays. But a lot of the other criticisms, I don't buy into. So, like, I think if Cliff was kept around with a better GM that built a better roster, I think he could be competitive. But there's enough concerns that I think he has to have his playmakers healthy and everything has to be right. And for me, I want to get a more conventional system. So that's where I'm at on those two. So when it comes to Keim, though, yeah, I'm done with Keim. It took me a while to kind of get there, but that's where I'm at.
And I think Keim's kind of saving grace was, and people always go, well, the DeAndre Hopkins trade, which was, I mean, it was an absolute slam dunk. Don't get me wrong, but like if you wait what like a GM should be, like if you wait like, the traits or like his abilities, drafting and like free agency should probably be more favorably graded in terms like there's far more weight on those activities and because you don't trade very often, so he's had one slam dunk trade in the past, 3 years.
Brian, right?
Exactly. And it's really because he took advantage of a guy who got fired 3 months later. And now he can't even say he's good trades because, like, as I was kind of alluding to earlier, look at all the trades he's made this season: Cody Ford, Trayvon Mullen, Robbie Anderson. The Rodney Hudson situation's turning into a complete dud. Like, none of these are working, and a lot of these are stopgap things that have just been complete clunkers. And again, I think a lot of the Pat P comments, obviously he's very salty, and so you have to take it with a grain of salt, but like I think some of the raw facts of just like, he'd even Pat P, who up until that point was a good Cardinal, like didn't even get like a call or anything telling him like, hey man, we're actually not going to resign you, like just stuff like that. It's like, come on, dude. So I don't know. I've ever since like the extreme DUI and that stuff, like he's always kind of been like walking the line, and now it's just like, I don't know. And then the Isaiah Simmons draft. Isaiah Simmons is turning out fine.
Mhm.
Fine. But that draft pick at 8, still, I'm just like, what's the philosophy here, man? Like,
Yeah.
we're in prime, like Kyler, do or die, and we're drafting a luxury player that no one knows what to do with. And like, spoiler, we still don't really know. Like, and I like Isaiah Simmons, he's good, but guess who when we lost to the Chargers, guess who they were picking on to win the game? Mr. Isaiah Simmons. So it's just
Yeah.
like, what are we doing here? Tristan Wirfs was right there, and nope. So I'm done with Kime personally. And Cliff, I'm done with too, just because I think his look. And last night, I don't know if you guys realized, Troy Aikman and Joe Buck were just kind of roasting Cliff and the whole front office, saying it's sloppy, it's not good football, they're the most penalized team, as you know, and it's just pure chaos every game. So I'm kind of done with it, I think.
Yeah.
And there's Twitter threads today of, you know, how a dumpster fire Cliff's offense is. So I don't know. I think it's telling, and I didn't want to believe it at the time, but Kevin Clark, who's a big NFL insider, writes for the Ringer and stuff. He had a very telling comment when, like, in the preseason, they were like talking about the divisions and stuff. Kevin Clark called it early. He's like, before, like, when the Kyler stuff was settled, but he was like, there's something going on in Arizona. I don't like it. Like, it's going to get really weird this season. And I was like, well, this guy's just being biased because he hates the Cardinals. Oh, right. Boy, was he right.
Right.
He called that shot like 8 months ago, and he nailed it. So, and then I think, and he even tweeted the other day, like, I'm tired of, he's like, I'm tired of what these Cardinals are, like, under Steve. He pretty much called that Steve Keim, saying, I'm tired of this experience. Like, and I think he hates the Cardinals, and even he's tired of it. So,
like, yeah, it's like I would love to see the Cowboys, like, as a franchise, suffer for a long time organizationally. But if there's a point where I'd be like, oh man, this is just too masochistic. Just
exactly. And also for the last Cliff thing, which again, he just doesn't make, like, last night, Kellen Olson, again, great reporter, mainly for Arizona Sports, mainly does Suns, but I think he has good Cardinals opinions as well. He said, you didn't go for 2 to play the field goal game, but when it came time to kick a field goal, you went for it. He's just like, I don't understand what Cliff's, like, game plan is, and I don't think he does. So it's just, that's the stuff I'm like, I can't deal with this anymore. Like, you don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on.
It feels like he's using the analytics without a contextual framework, if that makes sense. Like, analytics
1,000%.
are useful, but you need a contextual framework for how you process that in a bigger vision. Like you said, not going for 2 to play the field goal game, but then not playing the field goal game. It's like, yeah. Real quick, let me say hey to all the other folks that are in here, or at least some of them. I know there's a lot of folks who jumped in here. Thank you all for being here. Agent 47, Sean Payton as head coach of AZ is over now. Even Jim Harbaugh. I mean, I never wanted Jim Harbaugh. Sean Payton, if the draft compensation wasn't too much, we talked about that. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, who's going to want to come here? And this is tough. Like, we can talk about this a little bit more. But like, even moving on from Cliff, like, who's going to want to come here with the injured quarterback and the dysfunction, and if the owner as much as people want to see Cliff go, owner fires him after just extending him, and the Steve Wilks, like, are we getting someone better to come here is a fair question, So let me say to some of the other folks, but we'll come back to that. KR Gordon, again, thanks for being here. Let's see if there's other folks I missed. We've got Randrak. I assume this injury makes the team way less attractive for coaches. Yeah, I can't take another year of Cliff and Keim, like we said here. Sly, Fire Keim, yeah, I mean, or Fire Cliff, I mean, everyone's saying that. Yep. Let's see, Taylor Berry, thank you for being here, bro. What WTF happened? First 8 weeks, I miss so effing much. Yeah, I hear you.
Welcome to the party.
Yeah, we're a hot mess. Yeah, I mean, right now we are, right. Let's see if there's anyone else I missed. Okay. And then Blazing Mono, thanks for being here. We could try Urban Meyer. Yeah. Hard pass, but yeah, I hear you, right? Okay. Like that, but that's like, I'm sorry. And thank you, LJ. Thank you for the super chat. They should even play Carson Strong, who they signed to their practice squad. Carson Strong's an interesting one. The arm talent is elite, at least at the collegiate level. It's that knee issue He's, so he's a pure pocket passer. It's like it's kind of ironic that Kyler's down with an ACL and they sign, a quarterback who didn't go in the draft because of his knee issue. Listen, I wouldn't mind seeing what he can do. I'd be more intrigued by seeing him play than McSorley if they can get him up to speed. But at the same time, behind this offensive line, I almost feel bad. Like, do you want to really subject this guy with a degenerative knee issue to that offensive line? So thoughts on Carson Strong, and then we can also talk about, like, is a coach gonna want to come here? Are we better off sticking with Keim and getting? Sticking with Cliff. Maybe. We should get rid of Keim no matter what. Get rid of Keim. Do you stick with Cliff at least for another year simply because, like, what top line coach, top candidate is really going to want to come here? Are we really going to get anyone better than Cliff with the dysfunction? So thoughts on Carson Strong and thoughts on kind of the situation with the coachings and dysfunction.
I said we roll with Colt until, like Darren Urban said last night, he should get like hazard pay because, like, he's just getting lit up and will continue to get lit up, unfortunately, for the remainder of the season, just because the nature of the patchwork O-line. Unless if we get Rodney and Will Hernandez back, and hopefully that saves him. But at this point, I think it's just right off what we got there. Sure, but I'm kind of over it. Like, I think it's Colt and Trace till the end, and then just get through the season. Yeah, but again, like I kind of said earlier, this injury really happened at like the worst possible time for this organization. Like, if Bidwell's going to put on his big boy pants and make a lot of really tough decisions here pretty soon, because if this isn't handled right and the dice roll kind of goes against us, this could set the team back 3 years, because we've kind of talked about the timeline. Again, like, best case scenario, he's back October 1st, only missing 3 games. And even then, like, no one feels comfortable about that. Realistically, he's probably a year out. And so are you really going to play Kyler Murray for the final 5 games of a season? Like, assuming you've had a backup quarterback plan, or, the Case Keenums, the Jacoby Brissetts of the world leading you your first 9 games or whatever. Like, so realistically, I guess we'll see, but I think it's very possible Kyler won't be back till 2024. So going into that, what head coach or GM is going to want to take over a team where the whole franchise quarterback is a complete unknown? It's a really tough place to be in. To your point, even if we do fire Cliff, I don't know who's going to want to come in that situation and feel confident about, unless if, like, to me, in the perfect world, Bidwell just like sells the house for Sean Payton and just promises, like, hey, this is going to be like a long-term kind of deal, like, and just start acquiring capital, draft picks. Like, you're going to have a lot of draft picks, like, you're going to have complete control. And if Kyler isn't the guy, we'll trade him away and get you someone who you think. But, like, because I feel like that's the only, as a fan base, we need a vision. Because if anything, this team has not had a vision in the past 3 years, it seems like, from their drafting profile. So I don't know. It's a really tough spot to be in, and I think it's very precarious because, again, we could be, again, if Kyler comes back, but he either takes he's not the same guy anymore, and we're stuck with this version of Kyler, we're in a really bad position.
I don't look forward to what it's going to be like. I love what I do, content creation, but I don't look forward to what it's going to be like doing content next year if Keim is here, Cliff is here with Murray out.
I don't see a world where Keim is around. I think there's just too much out there now. Yeah. The voices are going to get louder. I don't know if I could see Bidwell he's going to be the cheapest one out of the 3 to get rid of, presumably. And as all of us says, oh, he's Bidwell's friend, like, he has to be hearing and seeing, like, this fan base will like riot if he's back again, you know? We're
Yeah.
gonna have like a top 6 draft pick, and if this guy is gonna be the one choosing, like, and because guess what, it's probably gonna be this is a lame joke, but it's gonna be a stupid inside linebacker. Like, we're gonna or he's gonna trade it for
Yeah.
another wide receiver. Like, I don't know how Bidwell can do that, because we're getting embarrassed on national stages now, like,
Yeah.
multiple times this year.
And, you know, I've said this before, but whatever you want to say about Bidwell, he does pay attention to what people are saying. That's, you know, that's why that, you know, that clause in the contract was out like that. You know, he hears it. So yeah, so like, I don't look forward to what it'd be like if all, you know, if Murray's injured and both of them are back. If Keim is gone, I listen, as much as I say I feel like it's time to move on from Cliff, I can do another season of Cliff with a different GM, especially considering how hard it would be to bring in a coach, a top line coach. That cat's in the background.
I saw him.
Yeah. Last time I did a live stream, he knocked over my
knocked over the bass amp. Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully he doesn't do it again, but we'll know in a second. Anyway, to me, Keim is the one who has to be gone. And I hope you're right. Right. If he's gone, I can live with it. But if it's status quo, it's gonna feel like the movie Major League, right? It's just gonna feel deflated unless they prove us wrong and start winning some games next year. That's how it's gonna feel. Let me get to some of the other folks in the chat real quick. How long is D-Hop signed for? He signed through 2024, and with the cap implications, it's really hard to move on from him on that contract in terms of the dead cap. And I mean, I wouldn't want to. I think he's talented, so that's how he's going to be here for a while, I think. Enrique Castaneda, I hope I pronounced your name correct. Who can be our QB next September? Or who would you like to see replace Murray while he's on the PUP list? So I did the video, and the two names that I mentioned were Case Keenum and Jacoby Brissett. But who are some other player or some other quarterbacks and that are going to be free agents that you would consider looking at? In fact, while you're talking about that, I'm going to share a screen because I've got a tab open with quarterbacks. Okay, here we go. So let's see if I probably need to make this bigger. All right, so let's get these ads out of the way if possible. Okay, we got Tyler Huntley, Shane Buechele. These are by age. Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones. Who knows what's going to go on with him there? Lamar Jackson. He will not be an option. Bryce Perkins, Drew Lock, Jarrett Stidham, Brett Rippon, Gardner Minshew. I'll be honest. I didn't really include Gardner Minshew, but in retrospect, he's a name that would be high on my list. Yeah. Yes. I think he deserves a chance to be a starter in the NFL. So that would be a name. Kyle Allen has started here and there, but John Wolford, Trace McSorley, no, Easton Stick, Mason Rudolph, Baker Mayfield. Obviously, people talk about Mike White. I think they're going to keep around with the Jets, even if he's.
I believe so. It's funny. I had a people like with the pre-Kyler injury. I was like, people treat our franchise or our fan base treats Kyler Murray like he's Zach Wilson, but like he's, but like he's significantly way better. But for some reason, we treat him like he's like that. But I always find that. Do you think Cooper Rush is going to be re-signed by Dallas? Because that one,
I think he's a good backup for them, right? I think they'd like to. I would imagine they'd like to keep him around. I don't think he's high enough on this list that someone's going to bring him in and give him a chance to start to give him.
Cooper Rush, I'm interested in because he's played well for Dallas when he had to step up.
Taylor Heineke, if they don't keep him around,
yeah, you have to imagine they're keeping him around. Probably, right?
I would think.
Yeah.
Obviously, Jacoby Brissett was my pick. Teddy Bridgewater's another interesting one.
Yeah, he's kind of.
Yeah.
Do you think? What about Gino? What do you think? Seattle?
I don't think he'll be available. Yeah.
Do you think Seattle? Are they? Because Seattle has what, third pick the third pick this year, I believe, from that Denver trade.
I could see
they're going to go quarterback, or do you think they go like the Will Anderson or whatever that edge is from Alabama?
You know what? I think because if you look at what they did when they built the Legion of Boom, they went the rest of the roster and then drafted quarterback late. I think they're going to bring Gino back with what he's done, and I think they'll probably go best player at another position.
Yeah,
Maybe see them take a quarterback on day 2 or 3, but
because their defense is now kind of fallen off. I mean, they got lit up by Carolina, and Carolina's offense isn't exactly,
yeah,
anything to write home about. I think what those two options, I mean, the Jacobys and Case Keenums, I think are the best realistic. I'm curious on Cooper Rush and Minshew, if any of those would be available. Because I think those guys can get, I don't know. It's such a weird, such a hard role to find, because it's like, hey, you can have like 9 games, but once our quarterback's healthy, you're gone. Like,
yeah, like the person you're gonna get, you can't bring in. You're not gonna attract someone like that who can get a legit like chance to be the starter somewhere else. Like even if it's like like a Marcus Mariota situation where the team's going to draft someone. If that quarterback has an option like that, a team that says is going to give him a chance to at least start for 1 year, we're not going to be able to compete with that. But I think of those names, not all of them are going to. 1 or 2 of them at best, I think, are going to get that. Someone might get an opportunity like that in Carolina. There's maybe 1 or 2 others, but there'll be some of those guys who would take that opportunity, I think, in Arizona, to be like, yeah, I get to start for half a season or 3/4 of a season potentially, and put some film out there to try to, I think there's going to be someone who we'd like to have who I think would be interested in that opportunity. For sure. Let me real quick. I want to say hi to everyone at least once. I can't get to all the comments. Omar Dow, I hope I pronounced your name right. I apologize if I did. Let's go. Just came across his channel. Hopefully Kyler recovers quickly. He has 99 speed. Thank you. I'm glad you found us. Welcome to the community. We have a good group of folks here in the chat. There's a Discord. There's a link below to the Discord if you want to get into your Cardinals conversation throughout the week. There's a group of folks in there, 150 folks or so in the Discord. And, there's always good conversations in there. So I'm glad you found us, Omar. Welcome to the community.
Unfortunately,
Simon,
he'll have 97 speed in a year. But
yes, right. Right. Simon, a channel member, also active in the Discord. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Would you promote Vance Joseph?
No.
No, I wouldn't.
Defense has just been bad. Defense has been remotely healthy, and they have not been exactly a strength for this team.
Yeah, I mean, agree.
Getting lit up by Patriots and Mac Jones last night. Like, come on.
Yeah,
I know one of those touchdowns was a D-Hop scoop fumble, but still.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's had moments where he's done well, and I think he's done an admirable job with what he's had to work with, but he has not done enough to in my opinion, to merit a head coaching job. You have to do better than that, So, yeah, for sure. Lennon Wolf, thanks for being here, channel member, longtime Arizona Cardinals fan, as long as at least his being young life duration allows. But yeah, he's been here for a while with the channel. Thanks for hanging out with us. Yep, Kyler to his ACL. See if Kyle Ledbetter, thanks for being here. Kyle is good too. How you feeling, Cardinals fans? Legit feel bad. Yeah, we're depressed. We already were kind of depressed, but even more so now. Austin Hoy, thanks for being here. I think Sykin would be a nice fit. He's gotten the most out of Jalen Hurts, lots of RPOs, and does a really nice job scheming guys open. Yeah, and that's the name I've kind of come back to. A couple folks I've talked to, I think yourself, and also someone else I talked to. My brain's not working. Was not as high on him in terms of kind of what he means or how he coaches. It was Blake Murphy. That's who I talked to, who had on live stream. He's not as high on him, and I think you had some concerns. I think he'd be a good fit, but I think there's some things people think he's still too much of a college scheme in terms, and we want some they would like maybe more of a pro scheme. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think part of a lot of his success is the Eagles have a fantastic roster, so his simplistic-ish offense is really working, because at the end of the day, it's like, well, you know what we're doing, but we're just better than you, so we're going to run right through you, which maybe that's we'll get way too simplistic. But another thing, too, is I feel like just with the culture issue we kind of have, we need a strong personality with a lot of experience to kind of just take control, and I feel like as good as Steichen could be, he might just get like Cliff 2.0, where he's just, completely ramrodded by everyone else around him and just kind of set up to fail. Which again,
Yeah.
Cliff has been on the article said Cliff's been kind of set up to fail, but I also some Cliff's play calling is completely his own doing. So
Yeah, I mean, I still like him as a possibility, but I hear that I hear those points. I'm not, and who knows, right? So, I mean, they have a great roster, so that's certainly a fair point about him.
I would say
Okay,
they were balling last year, but they also had a very easy schedule and they barely got in with the historically terrible NFC East, and they got bounced in the first round. So the Eagles weren't exactly doing great with the talent. I mean,
yeah,
they were decent, but they weren't balling, I would say.
yeah. It's Sammy saying just came, but will you be okay with obviously firing Keim and Cliff coming back for just a year with another offensive coordinator to help out? And we talked about that a little bit earlier that like I think we're both in this place where we feel like Keim needs to go, and Cliff we feel like we should move off of him. But if you fired Keim, brought back Cliff, and add an OC, I mean I'd try it. I
I just
I could
think
live with that.
we're just delaying the inevitable and just throwing more money at a burning pit, unfortunately. I like the idea, but it would take
Yeah.
something pretty miraculous, right? For I don't know. Not
Yeah,
my
I think
money, so why not? But
right.
if I was Bidwell, that's why I would see it if I was Bidwell.
Yeah, I mean again it's like if we don't think we can get a better coach to come here, maybe you do, stick with Cliff, and you don't have to go with a big name offensive coordinator. Just get like some quarterback coach somewhere who's been in the league for a while and has a more conventional system. So I could live with that. It's frustrating though that that's the situation we're in, right? So yeah, want to make sure see if there's anyone else I missed. Um Okay. Yep. I think I said hey to everyone at least once. So yeah. So it's frustrating. So what with the Kyler injury kind of as a backdrop. How are you approaching the rest of the season, and how are you approaching free agency in the draft? Does it impact or change how you approach those things now that we have this situation with Kyler?
I think so, because I think now in the draft, I'm a little more open to the idea of maybe trading down a bit and just start
Mhm.
acquiring capital. Because I think, again, in my head, I don't see. This is why I said this happened at such the worst time. I don't think Kyler's going to play at all next year. I
Mhm.
think, just realistically, I think it's a 12-year injury, because how dumb will you feel if you rush him back and he re-injures it, at 9 months, and like,
Mhm.
it's like now you completely just ruined any future value of this kid, like now you have a huge sunk cost in this quarterback.
Yeah.
So I think it's just more of the long play. That's why I think Bidwell needs to get a head coach and a GM and just like sell them a vision and just say like, hey, we're acquiring capital. You're gonna have time. You're gonna have patience. And like, you're gonna have a lot of stuff to work with here. And hopefully in our division, it's in a weird spot. Hopefully the Rams are already starting their rebuilding. Seattle, I think Seattle's interesting because I think they started off hot. Now they're coming kind of back to realities. I don't
Yeah.
now Seattle might be kind of what they really are, which is just like kind of an average-ish team. And again, their
Mhm.
quarterback situation isn't really solved.
Yeah.
And we can only hope that this is the end of the 40. Let's just all hope the 49ers win a Super Bowl so they can be snake bit next year. Then they can really start their rebuilding process. Hopefully at some point,
Yeah.
all the talent of that team will be drained from it finally, and we could finally start. So I think, again, Bidwell's going to have to make some really tough decisions. And if he's going to have to pull out all the stops and get a coach and hopefully a GM that they can build a vision with, because I think we're going to be in for the long haul. Because again, if some things don't fall the right way, this could set the franchise back like 3 years
Yeah.
if things don't go right. So
Yeah. That makes sense. I
not to
mean,
get doomsday, but
Yeah, no, you're right. It's tough because like this, with the way the division is down, this is the time. This is the time to be good. Seattle had led the division. I think San Francisco is going to end up being the division winner and probably end up being the best team in the division, even with what's going on with their quarterback. But we'll see. But even at that, they're starting, a rookie quarterback right now. And going into next year, will they be bringing back Jimmy G? Trey Lance certainly didn't look like he was the guy. So even there's so many question marks there. There's the division's still ripe for the taking.
Still not sold on Brock Purdy. I mean, as much
Yeah,
as
right.
he's a great Valley kid, he's from Gilbert.
There you go.
I still not sold on that train.
No, I think this year though I think they'll win the division.
Mm-hmm.
But that's that. But I don't think they're going to go far with him in the playoffs. But yeah, like going into next year, like who do you feel like heck, with the right journeyman veteran, I think we could, if we fix the roster. I know some people might think I'm talking crazy, but I think we could compete for the division. I don't think we're going to be a true title contender until Kyler's back. But like if you get a Jacoby Brissett or Gardner Minshew or someone and they play well and you fix the offensive line, you have a coach that, a better coach in there, or Cliff ends up coaching better with a GM that gives him a better roster. You make smart moves in free agency. It's more a testament to how down this division is. But I think it's not out of the realm to compete for it if you make the right moves and get the right journeyman in there. I think it's possible.
Look at Detroit. I mean, they're playing great. Their offense is clicking. They're one of the best offenses in the league, and it's built around a very good offensive line and some good skill guys. But I mean, those guys are like insane. Like Amon-Ra St. Brown is a nice surprise how good. I mean, he's good. I like Amon St. Brown, but like none of those guys are D-Hop. None of those guys are anything crazy. It's just some nice skill players and a really good offensive line and some good running backs, and Jared Goff, like we know. So if we could get our O-line to some sort of, I mean, obviously, it's pretty easy to say get an elite offensive line. It's easier said than done. But if you get some good offensive line play, we have the skill guys to back it up. I'm by myself right now. Hello, everyone. This is my stream. Haha, just kidding.
Sorry about that. I'm back.
No worries. I took over the stream. Don't worry.
Okay, good. Sorry. So yeah. I mean, Detroit has been, they've been competitive lately. I mean, you saw what Seattle did, right? So yeah, I mean, I in terms of like how I would approach things, like in light of this, I don't think you go. I mean, I'm not signing any expensive old veteran free agents. I'm signing a bunch. I mean, I still like the guys I did in terms of the video, like the names I brought up in that. Some of those offensive linemen. Matt Ioannidis, he's a veteran, but I still don't mind that. Not a totally big ticket guy, but. You mentioned trading back in the draft, and I kind of like that. I
think like where we're at, like 6 or 7, we're kind of missing out on the elite guys and the Jalen Carter and by the way, any draft talk, all this we're saying now is gonna be basically completely irrelevant. By the time draft rolls around, because I feel like that stuff changes so fast. But I feel like we're kind of missing out on like the 2 or 3 really high-end elite guys, and then we're kind of I think the marginal drop in like the talent from 6 to 14 is pretty minimal, because it seems like I was looking at like the corner, top corners, and like all the websites, they all kind of have different ones ranked 1. So it seems like there's not a consensus number 1. So it's like, okay, well, whatever. Like there's not a Patrick Surtain 2 or JC Horn this year where everyone was like, these 2 are the guys, and everyone else is just kind of whatever. So I think we just got to start amassing some assets, maybe use one of those picks to get Sean Payton.
I mean, right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big fan of like getting I love the value in the second round and late first round in most drafts.
Mm-hmm.
If you play it right, you can get solid starters there. So I'm kind of a fan of the trading back thing. So yeah, I'm with that. Um, Mentioning the Detroit Lions, real quick, there's a question. Austin Hoy saying, how do you think about or how do you feel about a Ben Johnson hire, like the Lions offensive coordinator? I mean that offense is going. I think he's one of those guys who'll get some interviews. So I know I've heard that name mentioned by a few people. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm not like I don't watch the Lions a whole lot because the Cardinals bring me enough pain in my life, so I don't need to. My
Yeah,
uncle's a Lions fan, and boy, you want to talk about a franchise that's also tortured. Um, those guys are right up there. Yeah, I mean, it seems like they're getting a lot out of a talented group of players, but you wouldn't say is like elite, you
yeah,
know. Again, their defense is kind of what's letting them down, but
yeah,
again, they're building the right way. You know, Panay Sewell's awesome, and he was a top, these premium picks on him. This is
yeah.
the beautiful thing about the NFL. When you suck for as long as like the Lions have, you can get mass some good players. So we might be entering our period of that, but
Oof.
um, but yeah, I mean, there's so many. Again, a lot of the coaching stuff is sometimes it's so hard to tell. Like when you give the coordinators the head coach, like you never know if it's going to work out. So that's why I'm a little wary of hiring a coordinator to be a head coach. Just again, for some of our culture problems we're having, like it's just I feel like they're
Yeah.
just might get Cliff 2.0 where it's completely not even out of their control half the time.
It's always a little bit of a crapshoot, I guess, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Real quick, let me say hey to a couple other folks in here. Lord Dane, thanks for being here. We could go after Teddy Bridgewater, Jacoby Brissett as the main QB option for 80. Yeah, again, Brissett was one of the guys I mentioned in my video. And Bridgewater is a guy who's been solid starter at points. So I don't hate that. Zombie Hobo, thanks for being here. If you trade Kyler, how much draft capital could you recoup with his injury problems, assuming you get a new coach? Can't work with Kyler personally. I don't think Kyler's an attractive QB anymore. I mean, you can't trade him now, both in terms of the cap numbers, and no one's going to trade for an injured quarterback. So 2024, but like you're just not going to get anything for him until people have seen him play another season, I think. And at
They want to
that
see what he looks like with the knee, yeah.
and if he plays well enough, then you don't want to trade, so
Exactly, yeah. It's kind of a lose-lose
yeah,
situation,
so
really.
I just think that is not an option anywhere in at least the next 2 to 3 years. We've got Decimus. Thanks for being here. There's still a lot of talent on the roster. Team goes nowhere unless we fix the lines. I think we will. Listen, there is a lot of absolutely. I keep saying this.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of talent, especially at the playmakers. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's the offensive line and defensive line where we need some help. Defensive line, we've had some bright spots, but I think we still need to add some bolster the depth there. So yeah, I mean, we have to fix that, and if we can, I think this team can be competitive, right? So Lord Dane said, I mean, Buffalo grabbed up Greg Rousseau towards the end of the first round last year, so grabbing up a good collection of picks would be nice and decent safety valve. I agree. John Olson, thanks for being here. Who would trade for? Yeah, he got a huge contract, right? Yeah, so exactly, kind of the point I just said. Yeah, so yeah, I think what you do is you try to build the best roster you can without spending tons of money on big ticket guys. You do smart things, have a good draft, fix the offensive line so whoever you put in at quarterback can be as successful as they
Isn't
can.
getting mauled, yeah.
Right. And if you fix the offensive line and you're paying, someone again like Jacoby Brissett, you can win games that way. You're not going to be a Super Bowl contender, but you can win games that way if you fix it. But with there's not a lot of trust in Steve Keim, right?
No, if not minimal. I mean,
Yeah.
the real big question is just how Kyler's going to look off his knee injury, which is a
Yeah.
big old question mark. I think these are the two ways to play it. Either you wait and kind of turn water with Cliff until you see what Kyler looks like, or you get bold, get a guy who you believe the next 3 to 5 years, so you can have his back and say, hey, if Kyler isn't the guy anymore, we need to move off him when the time comes. Like, you have our support, we trust in you, and the rest of the roster is good enough to make something happen. Like,
Yeah.
because we don't know what he's going to look like with his knee injury. I mean, we can, I think, just from watching enough of the sport, I think he's young enough, and like ACL stuff isn't a death sentence anymore. I think I think even Kyler in some of his limited running is still effective enough. This could be a really good thing. This might force a new evolution of him and to be the quarterback we all need him to be. That's super positive, hopeful, and who knows, but this could be a good thing for him, like, to push that next step of his evolution. But again, it's kind of a waiting game and see.
And that you make a good point. Like, and I've thought this, I haven't articulated out loud, but like, there's a universe where in the end, Kyler comes out a better quarterback because of sitting this year out. It's not that I want that to happen. I'd rather have him develop on the field, but there's a universe where getting to sit and watch and process the game in a different way gives him certain mental reps that unlocks some things in terms of just new understanding for him. Mm-hmm. Here's hoping, right? I mean, that's the looking for the best case scenario out of this situation. That's the lemonade we are seeking from this big pile of lemons that we just got. So yeah,
it's like unfortunately we have the Deshaun Watson situation where look what happens when he hasn't played quarterback in 2 years. He might. I mean, look, no one wants Deshaun Watson to fail more than me. Like I think the dude's disgusting. Yeah. But like he might turn around at the end of the year, might kind of return his old form. But like right now, the results are not looking particularly great. He doesn't look very good. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with that one.
Yeah, for sure. Diego Perez, thanks for being here. And Joe, when are you going to make a draft video? So, well, technically speaking, the one I did about fixing the Cardinals is kind of a draft video, at least in part. But, generally speaking, when the regular season officially truly ends, even though our season's over, and maybe a little more towards when the playoffs end, but when the season's over officially, I start getting to off-season mode with free agency and draft videos. I am going to be doing mock draft Mondays, probably pretty quick after the season ends, the live stream, that get back to doing that. That was a lot of fun last season. Are you a big draft person, Troy?
I get into it more towards like when it's become like later, like when it gets closer to the draft. Because again, like as we're saying now, and even early kind of the off season, all that rankings and stuff goes completely out the window until like, once the national championship game's kind of done and everyone can kind of change over. Because also like, because the draft happens like in the middle of free agency, like, Cardinals could address some needs via free agency or trades before even the draft hits. So sometimes it's hard to get too much into it. Like last year, we all spent so long mocking a first round draft pick, and guess what? We traded it away.
Yep. I will tell you, the mock draft Monday live streams were a lot of fun for me. It was a good way to learn about the prospects to kind of get to know who they were a little bit better. So I've had when the draft came, I had a much better familiarity with all the names and such. So we'll be getting that fired up. I have already been thinking about it, so that will be fired up again. So looking forward to that. So it's a rough season that has just been punctuated by a kick in the groin, and an ACL tear, and it's tough because now it reverberates into next season, right? We anyone like who was hoping for a reset, we don't get that, right? So it's frustrating, but it is what it's what it is. It's the hand we've been dealt. So, we try to talk through some of the ideas here. If you missed it, I did a video about how I would approach the Kyler situation. I talk a little bit about the timeline. If you haven't watched it, give it a watch. It's about 5 minutes long. And we had our therapy session, and we're kind of trying to, process this together. So Troy, I appreciate you hanging out here, on what is a very, frustrating, sad week as a Cardinals fan.
It's one of the I think it's always like it's not a relief, but like I think in the back of our heads we all were dreading the sticks. I think we all knew it was going to happen at some point, right? I think we all thought Kyler at some point was going to suffer a devastating knee injury, and it finally happened, unfortunately. So I guess now we can move on with that behind us, knowing that we don't have
Yeah,
to wait for that day anymore.
and I would say and that to that point, it's interesting because everyone's talked about Kyler's size and how small he is and how that the durability because of that. And all the injury problems, I shouldn't say all, but the biggest injury problems he's had have not been about his size, right? It's about, this was a non-contact injury. It is about him being a mobile quarterback, running as much as he does. But he does do a good job generally avoiding that contact. The hamstring injury is not really, that's not really a
No, yeah.
contact injury.
I think the only one was in 2020. He had that AC joint sprain that kind of
Yeah.
hurt him. I think that came from the Dolphins game where it was like the only time I remember seeing this because I was like, holy shit, or holy crap, he's gonna do. And he tried to like run through a guy and he got like stuck because it was like a 3rd and 1 or something, and he got popped, and I think that's where he hurt his shoulder, and that's the only time I could think of that happening to him.
I think there's the wrist injury that they haven't talked about much this
Mhm.
year. I don't know how much that was, that whether someone hit him or he hit a helmet or something. I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, you're right. It's mostly though been the non-contact stuff. So we got a question from Calvin, a channel member, and I also want to say hey to Robert G. Thanks for being here, Robert. Appreciate you. And I think that we'll take this question and then we're gonna get out of here. I appreciate everyone in the chat who's hung out with us. It's a discouraging day, but we all come together and commiserate. In spite of the drama, dysfunction, the media eating us alive, which players have shown the most growth this year? So, in your opinion, who are the players that have, to you, shown the most growth this season?
The Oklahoma Haas himself, Zaven Collins. I think he's shown the most growth. He's actually been pretty terrific this year. He's had back-to-back games of near interceptions, which I think that should have been a fumble pickup. Sorry, yesterday.
Yeah,
because it's just the tip, but he had like, I don't know. I mean, it's whatever, but like he kind of still had it. I was like, But I think Zaven Collins has been terrific this year, and really, he had a lot of pressure coming into it, and I think he's responded the best. Zach Allen's also been terrific, but he's kind of he was showing flashes of him being great last season. So, I think in terms of the biggest leap, it's been Zaven. Yeah, that's mine. What about yours, Joe?
Yeah, it was like, for me, I am going to go with Allen as the biggest. He had flashes, but the fact he's been so consistent this year, like game in and game out, like he's looked really good. He's maybe had 1 or 2 down games all season. And so for me, Zach Allen, even though he already had those flashes, how consistent he's been.
Yeah.
That speaks volumes. But Zaven is up there too. Zaven, there were a lot of folks who were doubting, and I think he's really shown he can be that true Mike linebacker. He's played really well. And so that I think that's definitely a player. I think you look at Josh Jones, who has played really well.
I agree.
Yeah, so I think he deserves a shot. Byron Murphy has played well, right? He's been injured lately, right? So a lot of people are saying Zach. I think Greg Dortch, when he's got a chance, he needs more chances, unfortunately.
Light the Dortch.
Right?
Yeah, he wasn't even part of the game plan. AJ Green, it was just like, what are we doing, guys? But
I think there's a lot of agreement that Allen and Zaven Collins are probably the biggest names. But I'm gonna throw another one in there that's not getting a lot of attention, and I'm probably gonna do a video about this a little bit quietly. Marco Wilson.
Oh, I agree.
Season. Look at his
very
PFF.
Consistent, yeah.
You look at his PFF grades game by game if you have access to that over the second half of the season. He's gotten better later in the season, and he's been more consistent quietly. So I think he has had a nice. He's taking strides.
that's a good call out. I mean, again, I totally agree. I think Marco's we all knew he has the athletic ability because he was just, off the charts,
Mhm.
insane athleticism. So it's really good. He's kind of, molding in to be a great cornerback 2/3. And again, if we go cornerback round one without, that could be a nice point of strength for us so that we could, kind of build off that. Because I feel like these days, like defense, you almost kind of like build inwards,
Mhm.
kind of in a way. Once you kind of get your corners, then you can solidify your D line. Depends how your philosophy of building a defense is, I suppose. But
Yeah.
Steve Keim philosophy is build your linebackers first. Oh wait, sorry, no, sorry.
Yeah, right. Oh my goodness, such a weird philosophy. So great question. Thank you for that question. So, all right, we're going to get out of here though. Thank you all for hanging out with us. Troy, where can people find you? I've got your Twitter handle below, but what can they expect from you, and anything you want to shout out, and anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Mainly just Twitter, and even then, I tweet over here now my frustrations. But if you're watching a lot of soccer, I support Tottenham, which once the season's over, I'll be switching promptly to that. So more pain
Okay.
and misery. But yeah, I think this has just been a great. I've been having so much fun on these shows. I've been really fortunate to be on them. So thank you, Joe. And yeah, just keep our heads up, guys. This is could be interesting. We're going to be entering a very weird, potentially turbulent moment in the franchise, and that's where Bidwell is gonna, I think, really make or break his kind of tenure of his ownership of this team, because it could get really dicey here really fast.
I agree. Well, listen, I've enjoyed having you as part of the TCR crew. So thank you for being here with us. You're doing a great job. Thank you again to everyone for hanging out. You know where to find me, Twitter, Jokomo13, the links below. Again, check out the video I just put up. And please do me a favor. Make sure you watch it, like it, and comment on it. That engagement helps get it out there so other people find it. The last video I did, the one on how I'd fix the Cardinals, has done really well. Gained 53 new subscribers from that video. So new people becoming part of our family here. So please do me a favor, watch it, like it, subscribe it. That really helps. The algorithm pays attention to that stuff. Thank you all for being here. We'll be doing more TCR stuff in the coming weeks, obviously. And also, I'll throw this out there. I am going to the Atlanta game, Cardinals game, New Year's
Why would
Day.
you do that to yourself?
Because it's the closest game. Yes, I have a good friend who's a Falcons fan. I'll be going with a couple actually good friends, or at least one good friend I know is going. So I'll be there. So if you're going to be at the Falcons game, what I'd like to encourage you to do is, one, join the Discord so you can be part of that, and I'll be kind of communicating in there. And I haven't got all the details planned out, but I'm going to try to plan at least some sort of quick meetup, even if it's just at the game in the stadium, just to say, hey, maybe get a picture, maybe do something after the game. So if you're going to the Atlanta game, the Cardinals, the Falcons game, please, get in the Discord, and I'll be planning something for that. So love to catch up with folks and shake some hands and stuff. Do they have Pepsi in Atlanta? This is Coca-Cola country.
Coke country right there.
Yeah, that's right. So all right. So thank you all. We will see y'all next time. And yeah, it's a rough time, but we're gonna stick together. So I'm gonna get the TCR member shout outs up. Again, thank you to everyone who's a channel member. Thank you for being here. See y'all later. Peace.